What's up, guys? I hope you guys are all doing well, whoever you are watching this video. Anyway, I'm back with another facts video. To tell you guys the truth, though, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do another one of these, but fortunately, I ended up finding some really interesting topics, and I'm curious to see what you guys think of them, especially number 1. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Number 10, Mechscape. If you played RuneScape back in 2007, then you may remember a rumor going around the entire community back then of a brand new MMO that Jagex was soon releasing named Mechscape. In 2007, Jagex began registering UK trademarks and various related domain names for the term Mechscape itself. At the 2008 E3 Media and Business Summit, it was confirmed that Mechscape was going to be released in the first quarter of 2009, however, it never was. Mechscape was supposedly going to be a browser-based sci-fi themed MMORPG that exceeded the HD graphics that RuneScape possessed at that time, and its target audience was going to be older players. Mechscape, unfortunately, was never released in 2009, and in 2010, Mechscape had been renamed to Stellar Dawn, but work on the project ceased once again in 2012 with no explanation as to why. On the 11th of August in 2015, ModMattK stated on Reddit that the official line is that it has been put on hold indefinitely. Furthermore, he commented on the game's mechanics. He says, "I remember playing an early version of it and it was rather cool. You had a spaceship in which you did research and built components to make parts for your vehicle, a lander that would take you down to the planet in your vehicle, and you would blow stuff up, simply put. When you go to a settlement, you would get out of your vehicle and walk around the settlement much like in old school RuneScape. I enjoyed it. It's a shame we can't put it out there for people to look at, but we don't actually think it even works anymore." While researching Stellar Dawn, I ended up finding their old Twitter page that surprisingly hasn't been shut down yet, but the last post was in 2010. Scrolling down on the page, I even found a link to the original trailer of Stellar Dawn that has been unseen by most people. I'll leave the Twitter link as well as the link to the actual trailer down in the description. Apparently only those with access to the trailer link are the only ones who will ever actually be able to see the video, but since I'm putting it in the description, you guys will be able to see it. I have no idea if Mechscape or Stellar Dawn will ever return, but in my personal opinion, I thought it was a pretty cool idea, and I would have loved to have tried it out just to see how similar the game's mechanics were to that of old school RuneScapes. Number 9, the Varrock Sweeper NPC. A lot of people simply overlook this NPC because he seems pretty useless, and to be fair, he kind of is. But recently, my friend pointed out a fact to me about him that I actually never knew about. He's stationed at Varrock East Bank, which if you remember back in 2007 was once a very popular area to train firemaking at, and I was surprised to find out that it's no accident that he's placed in that specific area. If you light a bunch of fires or drop some ashes, it turns out that he will actually sweep them up for you. This isn't really that interesting, but I was surprised to find out that I never knew about this for all these years nonetheless. Number 8, Quick Chat. Quick Chat was released on the 21st of May in 2008, and the reason for it, Jagex says, is to comply with legal responsibilities, meaning that if a player has a birth date under the age of 13, then they would only be allowed to use Quick Chat instead of the free chat. However, people lie about their age all the time. Anyway, over the years, Quick Chat has been changed and tweaked a lot, and a lot of words and phrases were secretly put in by Jagex that most players never knew about, but eventually, most of these got removed anyway. Some of the most popular ones back then that you could say were that you were looking to buy the item 9mm revolver, a pretty girl, mobile phone, or a meat stick. Honestly, now I see why some of these were removed. Just imagine kids who are actually under the age of 13 that keep spamming that they want to buy a meat stick. Number 7, the King Black Dragon. Released into the game on the 24th of September in 2002, the KBD was the second boss monster ever to be released into RuneScape at that time apart from Elvarg, and it was also the first boss monster to ever be released that you could continue to kill over and over if you wanted to, without requiring a quest to be able to kill it only one time like Elvarg required in the Dragon Slayer quest. Something interesting about the KBD though is that this huge lair that the dragon sits in nowadays that we all know about wasn't the first lair he ever had. This is what the lair used to look like. As you can see, the lair was a lot smaller in 2003 and 2004 during the RuneScape 2 beta, and in this picture you can see a player fighting the KBD in what looks to be like some sort of safe spot. I was a noob during these times, so I have no clue if you could actually safe spot the King Black Dragon back then, but it would be interesting to know if any of you played around this time and remember killing the King Black Dragon back then in its original lair if there was actually a safe spot. Number 6. Speaking of things looking differently back in the day, I was able to find a picture of the RuneScape 2 beta period in 2004, and check out how differently the items looked back then. The only items that haven't been changed yet are the rune plate legs, the dragon med, the adamant bar, and runite ore. The glory amulets looked a lot smaller, yet the other amulet, whether it's a magic amulet or a regular sapphire amulet, looked rather giant. The rune plate body had gloves attached to its sleeves, chain bodies actually had shoulder pads, and the rune kite shields had red trim around their frames. The interesting thing about the rune kite, though, is it's actually a regular rune kite shield, not a Zamorak kite shield, as those didn't exist yet during this time. Number 5. Zanuck. Everybody knows that Zanuck is a cave goblin who is called up to explore the surface during the death to the Dorgashun quest. She was released on the 21st of June in 2006, and she's one of the most recurring NPCs in RuneScape quest storyline history. Because of this, I recently realized that out of all the other NPCs and objects in RuneScape 2 for that matter, Zanuck has more examine information text than any other thing that exists in RuneScape. To be precise, she actually has a total of 21 examine options. I thought this was pretty cool. Number 4. Here's another one about dragons. In 2007's edition of Postback from the Hedge number 19, a player wrote to a dragon and asked them why they can't fly. A green dragon from the wilderness wrote back, addressing the player as meat, and continued to say that all dragons fly, but basically prefer to stay on the ground where their food is, meaning other players. What also is interesting is that the player tells the dragon to make sure that he doesn't end up cooking Posty Pete as he has no skin, which means he probably has no flavor, to which the green dragon responds, P.S. How do you think Posty Pete became a skull in the first place? Apparently, dragons caused Posty Pete to be what he is today. Number 3. Back in the day, Lumbridge Castle Courtyard looked a lot different than it does now. When the RuneScape 2 beta was very first released to paying members on the 1st of December in 2003, players who logged in for the first time ended up in Lumbridge with no items, as well as seeing the interface to customize your character's clothing, since there was no tutorial island back then. In this screenshot, when the beta was very first released, you can see in the background that the Lumbridge Castle Courtyard was covered in cobblestone. Recently, I found 2 other pictures that look to be from late 2004 or 2005, showing the castle's courtyard without the player customization interface in the way, and it shows pretty clearly how different Lumbridge was back then, but still the same in a lot of ways. Also, there wasn't any stairs. Number 2. This one sort of ties into number 3 and how I spoke about Lumbridge looking a lot more different than it does now. If you truly played often back then you'll also remember that the goblins of Lumbridge looked a lot different too, and in my opinion, also kind of looked better than the ones that we have today. They didn't have a fade out animation when they were killed, and they walked in a very specific and stiff movement fashion, sort of like our own players do today. Unfortunately, in late 2006, goblins, dragons, cows, and a lot of other NPCs' appearances and animations were updated as well, and I still sort of wish that we had the old ones today. Number 1. So I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to get into it more elaborately this time because I'm genuinely curious to find out whether or not this was an actual thing with Jagex moderators at one point in time. In this picture, you'll see Mod James has turned himself into a demon. Now, it's not a H-Ween mask because if it was, his arms wouldn't be red. Whether that's another Jagex moderator behind him, I have no clue, but apparently this screenshot was taken in 2005. I began playing in 2004, and I'll show you how I can tell that this image came from the year 2005. First off, the fountain looks different. It's more flat. Secondly, there's no cobblestone on the ground in Lumbridge like there was in the RuneScape 2 beta that took place in 03 and 04. And lastly, if you look at Ranches level 50, you'll see there's no diagonal line going through the 0 of the number 50, which is how the number zeros appeared to be up until 2006. And as far as I know, there is no RuneScape private server out there that has the client build of a 2005 version of RuneScape. So what do you guys think? Could Jagex moderators really turn their entire characters into demons at one point in time, or do you think that the picture altogether is fake? Let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be streaming later if any of you are interested in that, and I hope you've all had a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys later.